I'm Rick Collins, and this is Off the Bench. Today, we're talking Mavericks, 0-4 start, midweek football review of the season, and then World Series. Look, getting into the World Series first, Clayton Kershaw versus Dallas Keuchel. It was a great matchup going in. Everybody expected it to be a lot of strikeouts. Everybody expected, look, these are the two best pitchers in Major League Baseball going at it in the World Series. This is what the World Series is about. And Kershaw did not disappoint. Keuchel was fine. Keuchel would have been in for any other matchup. But against Kershaw, he needed to be perfect. He wasn't perfect. He gave up 2 home runs, and that was the difference in the game because Kershaw was lights out. He gave up a 4th inning home run to Bregman, and that was it. And that was it. He was unbelievable. 11 strikeouts in 7 innings. Again, he didn't get past the 7th inning. But look, this Dodgers team does not need him to get past the 7th inning. Right now, this Dodgers team, with the bullpen that they have, if their pitcher can get them to the 6th inning with 1 run or less, they're lights out. That bullpen has been unbelievable this season, and this postseason, they've just continued on. Jansen at the end of that bullpen has been lights out in the 9th inning. Again, they did not give up a hit or a walk between Jansen and and Moreau in the 8th and 9th inning, and that was all the Dodgers need to get a 3-1 victory in Game 1. Everybody kind of expected, look, both of these teams play great at home. They're not nearly as good on the road. I think there was an expectation, look, the Dodgers are going to win Game 1. The question is, will they get Game 2 against Verlander? Justin Verlander pitched phenomenally in the series against the New York Yankees in the ALCS. Can he give the same performance in Game 2 of the World Series? Of course, he's able and competent in getting that kind of game, in the World Series. We know he can do it. The question is, will he do it? And I think he will. The question then will be, can the Dodgers get anything off of him? Because we know that he can go 9 innings. We know he's going to be expected to go as many innings as he possibly can. And with Rich Hill on the mound for the Dodgers, we don't know what game he's going to bring. Now, he's been great in this offseason. But is he going to be able to bring home a Game 2 win? Because that's going to be all important going into Houston with Yu Darvish, who does typically pitch well at Minute Maid Park. But look, you don't want to give up one of these first 2 games at home in the World Series, because now you got to go play 3 in Houston after this. And if you give this one up, Houston can win the World Series at home and not have to return to LA. So a huge game, and that's tonight, 7 p.m. Again, it's Rich Hill versus Justin Verlander. A gigantic game for both teams. Going back to this last game, the Dodgers will hit home runs. The question is, can they get men on base? And they really weren't able to do that consistently against Keuchel. They've got to be able to get men on base against Verlander, because even if they can get that one or two home runs in this game tonight, it's not going to make the difference in the game, because Rich Hill will have to be Clayton Kershaw's twin if they expect to win this game against Verlander. He's going to have to be perfect. And I'm not sure that Rich Hill is capable of doing that. We haven't seen it quite yet. Now, that's fine. He can be phenomenal tonight. We'll say, you know what, we were wrong. He is just as good as Kershaw. But the two starting pitchers that we expect to be phenomenal on this Dodgers team are Yu Darvish and Clayton Kershaw. This is a bit of a matchup where the Astros have an advantage. They need to take advantage of that, though. They need to hit. They need to get men on base. They weren't able to do it against Kershaw and the Dodgers bullpen. They need to do it early and often against Hill. Get men on base, work in some runs, and Verlander can carry them to 9 innings. We know he can. When we get back, we're going to be talking about NFL. We're at a mid-season point, where the Cowboys are at, and some other interesting notes. And then also a Mavericks start that really couldn't be worse. Next.
We're so excited to invite you to our Stacey Furniture Anniversary Sale.
Save today on Stacey's outstanding selection, up to 50% off select items throughout the store.
Now's the time to buy that new bedroom, living room, or dining room suit. You can't beat these prices anywhere.
Name brands like Bernhard, Hooker, Universal, and Cheryl, all on sale today.
It's Stacey's Anniversary Sale only happens once a year.
Shop Stacey's today or visit us online at staceyfurniture.com.
Remember, when you're shopping at Stacey's, you're shopping with family.
The Mavericks could not have expected a worse start to the season. 0-4 at this point. We talked about the lollipop teams they had in the first two games, Atlanta and Sacramento, who really took care of the Mavericks. And then you knew that they were going to struggle against Houston and Golden State. Those are probably the two best teams in the Western Conference right now. Obviously, Houston's going to struggle a little bit without CP3, but they've still got the same team that they had last year. They're still a very good team even without him, and James Harden can handle the ball. They're going to win a lot of games, and Dallas was really not expected to beat them. The problem is that you had two games that you should have won early on, and now at 0-4, you're going to play against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're 3-0. They've had the opposite start that the Mavericks have had. Nobody really expected a whole lot from this Memphis Grizzlies team to start the season out, but they are dominating the game in the games that they've played. Look, they took care of Houston, they took care of Golden State, and they took care of New Orleans. Three teams that we expect to be very good, and New Orleans, I think, is expected to be considerably better than they were last year. I think they're potentially a playoff team. DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis with 1 year under their belt. Davis is struggling with an injury right now, but when they're together, that's a formidable team. The Memphis Grizzlies are a very good team right now, but if we look at their lineup, really what stands out is they've got Marc Gasol, they've got Conley. They don't have a whole lot of other stars on that team. They're a team that wins with depth, and they're a team that wins with ball movement, and they're a team that wins with playing the game as a team. And the Mavericks are the opposite of that right now. They have not figured out how to win games as a team. I'm not sure, that they know how to play as a team, and part of that is that you've got a rookie point guard. Now, he just came back the other night, obviously struggled against Golden State. Who isn't? Golden State's going to make you work on defense, and then look, he's a young player. If he's having to work extra hard on defense, you are going to expect his offensive numbers to fall off a bit. But they could not get anybody else going. Wes Matthews had the best game, and we've talked about how bad he's been for quite a while now for the Mavericks, and talking about how he's a guy that's trade bait that we don't expect to see on this roster at the end of the season, and he was the best player they had the other night. Dirk Nowitzki, they can't find him in space to get him open shots, and when he does get open shots, he's not making them. Right now, this team is a mess. Nerlens Noel is getting inconsistent minutes. Now, we heard from Carlisle that the reason he's not getting consistent minutes is because he's not getting matchups that are favorable to him. Well, look, he doesn't need favorable matchups. This team doesn't need favorable matchups for their players. They need to come out as the team that they're expecting to build around and play those guys. Because this is not going to work if you're trying to match up against the other team's players every night. This team doesn't have enough talent. This team doesn't have the capability to go out and play in spurts of 10, 15 minutes with players like Nerlens Noel. Those guys need to be on the court for most of the game. You've got enough bench players that you can fill roles. Dwight Powell coming out playing 19 minutes, I get it. You want him to play against an undersized center in Draymond Green. I totally get it. But that's what you expect from a team that's winning games and trying to win tight games against very good teams. They're not winning tight games. They're not even close to winning tight games right now. Go out and play the guys that you expect to build around for the next couple of years. I see where Carlisle's going with this, but it doesn't work with the team that they have right now. The way this team is playing, they're going to be a draft lottery team. Now, is that bad? No, I don't think necessarily that's bad because they need to get more young talent, and there's quite a bit of young talent in this next lottery, as we talked about before. I think the top 5, top 6 picks in this draft are guys that are going to be all-stars in this league in the future, and potentially some guys that could turn around entire franchise. So there's going to be talent in the top 6. The Mavericks, if they get into that top 6, could turn it around very quickly. But when you're counting on Dirk Nowitzki to score 20 points a night, which clearly with the minutes they're giving him, they're expecting him still to score, and you're expecting your bench to come in and play, consistent basketball, and you're expecting Nerlens Noel to be able to come in for 10, 15 minutes and put up 10, 15 points, that just doesn't work with the way this team is built right now. And we've got a lot of age on this team that isn't really, making anything happen on the court. We've got to go youth. We've got to get Seth Curry back. We've got to get a lineup in there that is the lineup that we're going to move forward with, because the way we're playing right now, we are not going to win any games based on the way Carlisle's playing guys, out of position, playing guys in minutes that don't work for what they need. And Nerlens Noel is a big piece of that. If he's the expectation of being the center going forward for this team, then he needs to be out there 25 plus minutes a night. Not this 25 minutes one night and then 12 minutes the next night. I don't care about the matchups. Play them. We need these guys to learn what their role is on this team. And right now, nobody knows what their role is on this team. One of the other things that we need to look at in this game against the Memphis Grizzlies is rebounding. This team is a nightmare on the boards. The differential that we have on the boards is the worst in the league. We can't stop teams from getting offensive rebounds. We don't rebound our own misses on the offensive end, and we can't rebound on the defensive end. It's an absolute nightmare. We're actually by far the worst team in rebound differential in the league with negative 12.8. The next worst team is the LA Lakers at negative 6.3. We are more than twice as bad a rebounding team as the next worst team. That's unacceptable. This team needs to figure out how to rebound. Maybe it's rebounding as a team, everybody blocking out. Maybe it's they need to bring somebody in who can rebound, because right now they don't have anybody who can consistently rebound night in and night out. And that's not going to work moving forward either, because especially when you're playing against teams that aren't as good, every time you give them a second chance opportunity, we've talked about this before, they're going to score eventually. Even the teams that aren't great shooting teams. Now, look, another issue that the Mavericks have is they're one of the worst teams in the league in scoring. And that would be okay if they could play defense, but they can't play defense either. Not only are they the third worst team in scoring, they are the third worst team in giving up points. So, worst rebounding differential and one of the worst differentials in points. Both of those combined will lead to an awful season, and that will lead to a top 5 pick in the draft, not a chance at the playoffs. Now, again, it's not bad to go for the draft. There's some great players in the 2018 NBA draft. But Carlisle's not a coach that expects to go into the draft lottery. He's a coach that's trying to coach this team into the playoffs. And right now it's not working. They need to make changes. I'm not the expert on this, so I'm not going to say here's all the changes they need to make. But they need to make some changes. They've got to figure this out quick, because this could go downhill very fast for the Mavericks. When we get back, I'm going to talk about NFL midseason notes. I've also got some fantasy football advice for all you fantasy football players out there. Next.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Back with some NFL season, midseason notes. So We're about midway through the season, and this Cowboys team is still distracted. They have the Zeke suspension still looming. After this week against the Washington Redskins, he should be on suspension at that point. We don't know. Of course, this could be still a mess in the courts for a long time coming, and he could end up playing out the rest of the year. But this is always going to be looming over this team for the rest of the season, whether he's suspended or not. And it's created some issues, certainly in the locker room. Maybe not as bad as we thought, because they came out and they steamrolled the 49ers, as we talked about the other day, this last weekend. This is a game where we're really going to see if it's affecting them or not, because, look, the 49ers are a terrible team. There's no expectation that the 49ers are going to be a good team going forward this year. They're starting a rookie quarterback, and he's not ready to take the helm of this team. They had to go in that direction because they don't really have much of a choice. But this Redskin team is another deal. This Redskin team is looking at making the playoffs this year, and the Cowboys are really the only team that's in their way. They're going to have to play 2 games with this game coming up against the Cowboys, and obviously they're going to be looking forward to some easy matchups against the Giants, who are going to struggle for the rest of the season. They barely have any wide receivers, and their running game is pretty much zero at this point. So this Redskin team expects to make the playoffs, and so does this Cowboys team. So this is a great matchup to see this weekend if the Cowboys still have some lingering distractions from the Ezekiel Elliott suspension. Look, the Cowboys are going to be experiencing this for the rest of the season. They just got to push past it. Their biggest concern right now is having Dan Bailey out, to be honest. They're getting back some of the healthy players. David Irving's back. Sean Lee's back. Zeke, obviously, still playing. Dan Bailey out. He's been automatic for them for, multiple seasons now. He's the most efficient and effective kicker in the NFL and has in the history of the NFL. Having him out is going to certainly pose a problem for them when they're playing against better teams. I mean, against San Francisco, yes, you can bring in Jeff Heath, have him kick some field goals, and it's fun because you're up 40-3. But when you're talking about playing the Redskins, Jeff Heath is not the kicker going forward. He's not going to kick field goals for them. That's why they brought in Mike Nugent. But Mike Nugent isn't Dan Bailey. Let's not have an expectation that each one of these field goals, 35 and out, each one of these extra points is going to be automatic, because it's not. Dan Bailey has made it look automatic. But if you look around the league, a lot of the kickers are showing that extra points aren't automatic anymore. 35-yard field goals aren't automatic anymore. This is the way that they've changed the field goal distance has really affected extra points. It's affected outcomes of games. So I would expect that we're going to have a little bit of growing pains with Mike Nugent that maybe we didn't expect, because we've always had Dan Bailey. And it's going to be a struggle going forward, but let's see what Mike Nugent can do this weekend against the Redskins. I have a feeling that every single one of his kicks is going to matter in this game, because the Redskins play games close. This will be a close game. We'll talk about it more tomorrow and Friday. But the Cowboys, this is a do-or-die game this weekend, and they've got to get a win. Other things around the league, well, with the Cowboys, let's start real quick. Demontre Moore was actually waived to bring in Mike Nugent. Questions about whether that was related to political stance. Doesn't really matter, because David Irving had just come back, so the expectation was, look, we got some flexibility to move pieces on the defensive line. Demontre Moore clearly was the piece they wanted to move. He's been waived. David Irving's back. That's the end of it for me. Other things around the league. Some of the celebrations. The best and worst for me. The best was watching the Pittsburgh Steelers do the hide and seek. I thought that was brilliant. Something I'd never seen before. Got other players involved. That was a great celebration. A celebration that got other players involved that wasn't so great was the pat-down celebration. I believe it was the Cincinnati Bengals. Not really in the best of taste, I think, in an NFL game. Curious to see if we see another one of those coming from them moving forward in the rest of the season. Other items. DeShone Kizer got pulled again, second time in 3 weeks that he has been pulled midway in a game. Look, the Browns are terrible. They need to decide, look, we're going to go with the rookie quarterback going forward, or we're going to sit him and have him learn. And I think that's fine. Whichever way you go right now with the Browns, they're bad. They're not making the playoffs. Sit the kid, have him learn, or just throw him out there, have him play. Don't pull him midway. It's too destructive to the team to have the quarterback get pulled midway through the game, every other game, and then keep starting him. It doesn't make any sense. Start the kid, have him play the full game no matter how bad it gets. Let him learn from that. Don't pull him, or don't start him. Start Kessler, and start Kessler for the rest of the season no matter what happens, and have the kid learn from him. I think Kizer needs to know that he's either the starting quarterback or he's the kid learning and preparing to be the starting quarterback of the future. You got to go with one of those, because what you're doing right now just is not going to work for the team going forward. It's going to hurt DeShone Kizer's confidence, not only in this season, but going forward in his career. And the Cleveland Browns can't afford to do that. They've got to have a quarterback who's going to be confident and be the future of the franchise. Just look at how many quarterbacks they've used over the last 10 years. It's insane. You can't keep doing it, Cleveland. Stop. Also, around the league, the Eagles, look, they lost a couple of players this week. They lost their left tackle again, and Peters, and they lost their middle linebacker. That's going to hurt them, but Vaitai stepped in, did a commendable job at left tackle, and I think he's the guy going forward for them. Obviously, the Eagles need to stay healthy because they've got the Redskins and Cowboys who are going to be hot on their tail, but they really need to get home field advantage. They need to win as many games going forward. They've got a fairly easy schedule based on past stats and based on how the season's gone so far. They need to win these games moving forward. They need no surprises, no hiccups. They need to stay healthy because that's a way they can seal home field advantage in the playoffs and win the NFC. And that's what their expectation should be. Aaron Rodgers being out is a huge help. I think that gives them a window that they need to take advantage of this year, because certainly with Rodgers back next year, that window is going to start closing very quickly. That health is going to be important going forward. These could be problems. Jordan Hicks and middle linebacker, obviously a very big piece to their defense. I don't know how they fill that. Najee Good is a good player, but he is not Jordan Hicks. Defensively, they really need to stay healthy because right now they've been playing as a team and playing very effectively. If they get injuries, the defense could be the biggest concern, and that puts more pressure on Carson Wentz to win games for him, and they can't really afford to have that. And lastly, Colin Kaepernick lawsuit against the NFL. I think it's interesting to see what happens with this going forward, because this could be very embarrassing for the NFL owners. It may not be the biggest of news in terms of things going on this season in the NFL, but I think we'll see an outcome that does not put the owners in a good light one way or the other. And that's it for this week on Off the Bench.